If he had a straight or a flush, players tend to like to squeeze it out. 2, he put the card down immediately like it was hot. That's an indication that he probably helped the hand. So not only was he drawing to 2 pair, he probably has a full house. This tell doesn't just apply to draw poker. I want you to watch what happens, though, when a player draws 1 card. Well, here are 2 things that might happen. In the first case, one player draws 3 cards, and the next player, the one we're going to focus on, takes 1. In the second instance, the first player takes 3 cards, and the second player takes 1 again. Do you notice anything different here? And what do you think it means? If you didn't see the answer, it will become real obvious to you in 1 second. You see what happened? In the first case, the player took 1 card against the 3-card draw and looked at it immediately. In the second case, he didn't do that at all. He took 1 card, and what happened? He just shuffled it. What you need to know is that when a player shuffles his hand, he's more likely to be on the come. He doesn't have 2 pair. But when he takes 1 card and looks at it immediately, he probably has 2 pair. That's very important, but this tell goes way beyond that. This is a tell that applies even to a game like 7 stud. And the part of this tell that applies there is that a player is much more likely to look at a card immediately if he already has significant strength. If he doesn't have significant strength, if he's on the come, he will take time to squeeze out that card. Sometimes when you're playing 7 stud, you have to look at that last card and see what your opponent does with it. If you're like most players, you're going to be looking at your own last card and you're going to miss this tell. Now look at the player at the right. What's happening that gives you a clue as to whether or not he made his hand? If you're like most players, you're going to be looking at your own last card and you're going to completely miss this tell. Now look at this man. He's going for a straight, picks up a card, it makes his hand. What does he do? 2 things. Puts his cards immediately down, folds them, and looks away. The tell I want you to focus on is the fact that he folds that hand immediately. Let's see it one more time.
100.
Just remember that players who make hands are apt to fold them and conceal them. Players who are weak are apt to keep staring. Players staring at their cards are usually weak. Always watch your opponents when that flop comes, because you can learn the darndest things. This tell is one that most serious players already know. Let's see if you do. There are 3 hearts. Now look what happens. Okay. When the flop comes, all 3 of the same suit, and your opponent looks back briefly at his hand, that usually means that he's checking to see if he has 1 more of that suit. It means for sure that he does not already have a flush made, and you don't have to worry about that.
Hi!
Oh, hi. This is Silver. This is the poker playing parrot. This is the one I've dedicated one of my books to and is soon going to have a poker page on the internet, and he knows all about this tell. Okay, let's watch this. Stop! Why are you looking at the flop? Don't look at the flop. When that flop comes, the biggest mistake you can make is to watch it. That flop isn't going to change. Those cards will still be there. But if you're watching that flop like everybody else is, you're missing some of the most profitable tells in poker. Watch the man over here behind the dealer. That's who you should be watching. What can you tell from him? Now let's do this again. Good. You're not watching the flop. We're watching this man behind the dealer, and he's watching the flop. You know what that tells us? Players who continue to stare at the pot usually have weak or uninteresting hands. When they have actually strong hands, like this, they do something quite different. Yeah, when you see a player do that, you know you're facing strong cards. See? And now you know better than to bet into this man. And it all happened because you weren't watching the flop, you were watching him. There are only two players in this till, and I want you to look at the one in the striped shirt and tell me what you think that man is doing. Okay, here are some more cards. And what just happened? Something significant just happened. Did you see what it was? This man has a king of diamonds up, and now he catches an eight of clubs, but he looks back at his hand. Why does he do that? Well, there are two strong explanations. One is that he had a pair of kings, and he doesn't remember what the other card was, in which case he might have kings up, or he started with three diamonds, and he's looking back to see if this paired him with a pair of eights. When a player looks back to check his cards, always ask yourself what possibilities could cause him to do that. Here's one of the greatest hold'em tells of all time. Here comes the flop. Watch how this woman reacts to it. This is case one. Now let's look at case two. Here comes the flop again, but she reacts differently. What do these two instances tell us? Remember, you'll only catch this tell if you're watching the woman, not the flop. Here she doesn't like what she sees, so she just keeps staring at it, pretending it's good. In this next instance, here comes the flop, but it's real good, and instinctively she glances to her chips and then looks away like she doesn't like what she sees. But she does. It helped her. A player glances secretly at his chips only when he's considering a bet, and almost always because he's helped his hand. Oh, my friends, we're into the tell's mother lode here. I want you to memorize this reaction. Let's use draw poker as an example of this powerful tell that works in any game. The woman is drawing two cards. Can you tell whether she made a good hand or not? Well, here's what just happened. The woman took two cards. Now look. Ooh, a full house. But watch what happens. She closes that hand immediately and looks away. Closes it, looks away. This is always an indication that the player made a powerful hand, and you should throw yours away. Remember, in their attempt to deceive you, players typically stare longer at cards that are bad than cards that are good, and they look away because they're trying to act uninterested. Oh, here comes a really great tell. Now I want you to watch this woman closely and see if you can figure out what she does that gives you a clue to the strength of her hand. Now watch.
Give me two.
Okay, now watch closely and listen.
Yeah, give me one.
Man has taken two cards. The lady takes one card. Now watch her closely.
Bet.
What does she do, and what does it mean?
Race.
So what exactly happened here? Well, the woman drew one card, and she shuffled. That means she was probably going for a straight or a flush. This is draw poker, but it could happen in seven stud as well. And what happens when a player shuffles? Well, she's looking for that straight or that flush, looking, still looking. Ah, there it is. I raise. The secret here is simply this. A player who shuffles cards looking for a straight or a flush